Dear colleagues, we proceed with our working day. The next press briefing will be to the topic what hinders efficient implementation of the policy on assistance to IDPs. Our speakers will be Natalia Veselova, an MP, Samopomich faction, Olena Vinogradova, advocacy expert at the National Charity Fund, Pravo на zahyst, Tetyana Durneva, expert on IDP-related issues at the Institute for Social and Economic Studies, and we wait for an MP, social policy employment and pension provision. The floor is yours. Good afternoon, dear guests. My name is Novikova Natalia. I am a coordinator of the Resource Center for Assistance to IDPs. In several days, there will be a very important event for IDPs. This will be parliamentary hearing. They will not resolve all the problems in the society, but this is the opportunity open to publicly express the views, opinions on legislative problems related to IDPs. For 2 years, the public have been trying to establish communication with the governmental bodies to resolve the problems with IDPs so that they have decent conditions and can realize and exercise their rights, human rights. Hundreds of people can't receive individual assistance which is guaranteed by the state and by the law due to the unwillingness or lack of professionalism in the social policy ministry to conduct their activities in the right way. So the law which has been passed 1 month ago, the law on amendments to strengthen the guarantees to IDPs, it has not been provided with an explanation. So to our resource center, at our resource center, we have received a lot of claims concerning non-payment of compensations to IDPs for the pensioners and low-income citizens. This is the only allowance they live on. So the parliamentary hearings, this will be the first and maybe the last opportunity to show to the civil society this urgent, pressing and sore topics. For 1 month we have been working on the document, draft recommendations. They will be transferred to the Verkhovna Rada for approval. It should cover all the changes which are required for the legislation framework in this field. And now I am giving the floor to Viktoria Savchuk, advocacy expert at the NGO Crimea source.
Good afternoon, I'm Viktoria Savchuk, and I would like to stress that in the context of today's situation and enforcement of repressions in relation to Crimean Tatars and also shellings in the east, in the context of problems of aggravation of situation in the sphere of obtaining documents for IDPs and also address help, and also there's no proper access to some services that are needed by IDPs. So we would like to provide you with proper information, and this is in deficit now, this information, and civil activists try to consolidate their efforts and to provide information. And also there are some proposals how to solve these issues. And this is very important. That's why we are, as NGOs, in cooperation with the Committee of the Supreme Council of Ukraine on Human Rights, we're involved in preparation of parliamentary hearing on IDPs and on occupied territories. And today we want to present our recommendations that we wanted to make public and to provide this information on importance of state policy on IDPs and those residents that live in occupied territories. This information should be provided to the people's deputies, and half of 450 deputies will hear this and understand the importance of this topic, and they won't be afraid of this topic, and they will join the ranks of opponents of the team that fight for the rights of IDPs. I won't take much time, but I would like to stress that today is a very important day. This is the first hearing like this, and it broadens the scope of the activity, and we hope for positive results and information outbreak that will spread and disseminate information among civil servants and MPs, and these parliamentary hearings will be a starting point for real steps, real policy as to improvement of lives of IDPs who are in trouble now, and they have worse conditions than other citizens of our country. Tatiana Veselova joined us. She is an MP, the Secretary on Social Policy and Pensions. Good afternoon. Veselova Natalia, Samopomich faction, Sila Людей Party from Donetsk. Today's parliamentary hearing is opportunity to pay attention to the problems of IDPs and those who live in occupied territories. This topic is not circulating in the media properly, and those who suffer from military actions in the east of Ukraine, they are like people whom we don't see, and people don't pay attention to these problems, and they try to imagine that this problem does not exist. And we have some draft laws that are for these people, IDPs, and those who suffered because of the military actions. But these draft laws, they do not find support among the deputies. That's why these parliamentary hearings are needed in order to inform the members of parliament on the depth of this problem and to turn the attention of the government and the international community. I would like to stress that we don't have state policy on IDPs and occupied territories, and it's a big problem. For a year, we tried to adopt complex state policy on integration and reintegration of IDPs. It had to be adopted for 2014 and 2015, and the Cabinet of Ministers adopted this program for 2016. But we don't know whether this program will be completed. So there should be some calculations and allocation of funds for this program. But this work is not carried out, and one of the main problems why this work is not carried out, this is the absence of the body of power that will deal with this problem. And every time during the meetings and forums, in all meetings with the Cabinet of Ministers, we say that we need a central body that will deal with the issues of IDPs and those who live in the occupied territories. There should be a vice premier that will deal with these issues, or the ministry that will deal with this problem and solve the problems of IDPs and people who live in the occupied territories in Donbas. Now we face the problem that Kirilenko, vice premier who deals with humanitarian issues, he even doesn't try to hide that he doesn't deal with the problems of IDPs. And yesterday we heard the report of the government, and the week before we got the report, but this problem of IDPs and the work of the Cabinet of Ministers in this direction, about 10 lines only were written on this, and we don't see any results. That's why these public hearings, they are very important for us. I say for us because I'm IDP myself. I lived in Donetsk, and I was forced to leave my home, my town, due to the military actions in the east. Thank you.
Пані Наталя.
Thank you, Ms. Novikova. And now we are giving the floor to Olena Vinogradova, advocacy expert. Dear colleagues, this parliamentary hearings 600 people from NGOs have been registered to take part in them. They represent more than 350 NGOs, and even more persons will watch the parliamentary hearings on TV and online. As concern the meetings near Verkhovna Rada, the NGOs have submitted the request to have meetings near the Verkhovna Rada. What is it talking about? That these parliamentary hearings are very important, and this event will be one of the most important among the hearings in Ukraine, and the recommendations of NGOs and initiatives that have been submitted for draft recommendations. There were several theses. This is housing for IDPs, both provision of new housing and renovation and of the housing which has been destroyed during the hostilities. The IDPs, self-employment and jobs for IDPs, and funding of reintegration of IDPs, funding of national strategy on human rights to the extent of IDPs and residents of occupied territories, and development of a single state strategy of information policy on the rights of IDPs and citizens of Ukraine who decided not to leave occupied territories which are not under control of the government. All the recommendations are not complex, and their implementation is possible, and it will decrease the social tension among IDPs. and citizens living in occupied territories, and taking into consideration yesterday's events in the Verkhovna Rada, and I hope that the decisions will enable to prevent situations when the government take decisions controversial to the constitution of Ukraine and the legislation of Ukraine, and prevent registration of draft laws which are which differing to each other 90 and active actions of the government will facilitate publication in Ukraine of such which insult IDPs, and I hope that 90 draft laws and resolutions will be heard by the parliament and adopted. They are required because IDPs wait for them because they can address and resolve their problems, and there are draft acts which are intended only on political PR and populistic considerations. Yesterday, the Prime Minister, the Verkhovna Rada sitting, said that the highest challenge last year was IDPs is not only a challenge, it is more the opportunity to see what problems are in social life, are available in social life now, and in management of social processes, and very fast and with the support of civil society to conduct required reforms to integrate Ukraine into Europe. Thank you, Olena, and our last speaker will be Tetyana Durneva, expert on IDP-related issues at the Institute for Social and Economic Studies. Good afternoon, dear colleagues and audience of the press conference. I have come from the east of the country several days ago, and I talked to people there. People are very tired of waiting for systemic changes, especially this concerns Donetsk and Lugansk regions citizens who reside in the territories not controlled by the government, and these regions also hosted the most number of IDPs, so the parliamentary hearings may postpone that period when people will go marching on the streets. Organizers of the actions when NGOs lead people to the streets, they conduct their actions to tell about the problems which IDPs experience. And I would like to add that today's parliamentary hearing, this is not the end, this is not the final, this is yes, for several weeks we have been collecting recommendations from all over Ukraine. They were from utopic, idealistic to very practical and real ones about very specific steps that should have been done 1 year ago already. If there is a will, if there were will. this will, political will, is required from the parliamentary hearings so that the changes are implemented and they will be discussed in the session room of the Verkhovna Rada. 350 or more initiatives who have provided their recommendations for the parliamentary hearings. We understand the long way to adoption of the resolution of the Verkhovna Rada fast, and then for Verkhovna Rada to incorporate all these amendments into the legislation and regulations and to every small detail on which the centers of lives of thousands of our citizens depend. This day today is not less interesting as yesterday. I have several questions to you. Will the administration of presidents send their representative to the public, to the Verkhovna Rada hearings, and what result do you expect from the hearings? Will it be a resolution, and how will it be implemented in reality? Answering the first question, we don't know who will represent the administration of the president. According to the preliminary data, the ombudsman on disabled persons, Mr. Sushkevich, was our contact person with the administration of the president. As concerns the results, we expect the resolution of Verkhovna Rada approving the recommendations of parliamentary hearings. Today we will disseminate the draft recommendations. It is not a final version. It should be expanded upon today's discussion at the parliament. As usual, the practices show that such resolutions they are adopted during more than 2 months. It was 6 months last time needed to adopt a draft resolution. Such decisions, they have political aspects, so they should be agreed with every faction in the Verkhovna Rada. Are there any more questions? There are no questions and comments. I have one question of myself. This is the first public hearings. Last time it was in the committees where the hearings were conducted, and the recommendations of those public hearings have been implemented by 30%. This time, what do you expect? What will be the percent of implementation of these recommendations upon they adopted? I can be it depends on the political will and activity of the civil society. I'm sure that every law can't work without mass media attention and pressure of the civil society, and this is the issue which presses on thousands of our citizens. It will be in focus of our public. So once our government understand that this issue should be resolved, then they will take some steps, and so far they do not understand. Thank you, dear colleagues. Let us end this press briefing, and we hope that the public hearings today will be with good results.